verse or two, starting at verse number 20. And we'll look at some others perhaps as well. Are you expecting to hear from God this morning? Yes. Are you really? Yes, sir. Did you come desiring to hear from him? 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20 is where I start. And I am reading this morning from the King James. But in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. Father, bless your word to our hearing. Speak faith and life to us in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. The Lord of praise.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. These verses, Paul, in writing to Timothy, uses the imagery of a great house. A great house. We might say a mansion or an estate. He uses the imagery here of a great house in describing the visible church in the earth. He has just finished talking to Timothy in earlier verses about the foundation of the church, of the invisible church. That's the church of all times and in all ages and in all places. And he says to Timothy that the foundation of the church stands sure. It has a seal that God knows those who are his. And now he begins to move into this imagery of the visible church. The visible church is what we see around us. The visible church is us. The visible church is the church around the world that we can see, that meets sometimes on Sunday morning, sometimes in homes or in buildings, but the visible church. Paul describes it now with this imagery of a great house. His words will take us immediately back to the imagery that Jesus uses in Luke chapter 14 when he's talking about the kingdom. Remember, when Jesus is talking about the kingdom, he describes a master of a great house who decides to have a banquet. Remember, he decides to have a banquet, and so he commands his servants to put together this huge feast, and he commands them to go out and extend invitations to all of the people around to come to his feast. And when the feast is ready, there are those who will not come. There are those who have made excuses as to why they cannot come to the banquet that has been prepared. And so he sends his servants out, remember, again and again and again. And so when the house is full and the banquet is ready, his table is filled with the blind and the poor and the maimed and all the broken whosoever's that he has gathered together from the highways and the hedges and the byways and the back alleys. And they freely come to the master's table to eat of the graces that he has prepared for them. Wherever they have come from, they are the master's guests. And the feast that they enjoy, the graces that they will partake of, are of the master's goodwill and not their worthiness.
All right, amen.
So Paul says in a great house. His imagery here that he begins to describe this great house and this great banquet that has been set before the master's guests. It is not about the guest. Paul's imagery here in 2 Timothy, it's not about the guest. It's not about the table. Nor is it about the succulent graces that are served up at this feast. But rather, Paul wants to talk, and the Holy Spirit wants to talk to us now about the vessels on which such graces are served. It's odd that he doesn't want to talk about the meal, doesn't want to talk about the gifts, doesn't want to talk about the graces, he doesn't want to talk about the guests, he doesn't even want to talk about the master who has thrown this great feast. He wants to talk to us about the dishes, on which the graces are served. He calls our attention further to the fact, as we read this text, he calls our attention to the fact that in a great house there are vessels of gold and silver on which these graces are arrayed and served up even to the undeserving who have come at the invitation of the master, that there are vessels on which these graces are served. But he calls our attention to the fact that there are other vessels in the house. There are other vessels in the great house that do not make it to the table. That there are other vessels in the house that do not make it to the party. They don't get a place at the table. They cannot be used by the master to bless his guests. Read the text. The difference, are you still with me?
Yeah.
The difference then between the gold and the silver vessels and the wood and earthen vessels is not bling and is not flash. It is not that they are gold. It is not that they're shiny and one is not. The difference is not bling and it's not flash. The difference here has to do with durability and usability. It's about how long one lasts versus how long another lasts. It is about whether or not the master can really use these vessels to serve up his graces to the people he's invited into his house.
Amen.
Obviously, we are the vessels. We are the vessels. We are the plates and the cups and the bowls. We are the vessels that the master desires to use to bless those who he would invite into his house. Are you with me? We are those vessels that he desires to lay out on the table and serve up blessings and giftings to those who would gather into his house, the church. That's the end of the analogy because it breaks down there. It breaks down because, are y'all listening to me? Because dishes and cups and bowls don't get to decide if and when they are used. Dishes and cups and bowls and glasses don't get to decide if they make it to the table or not. but people do.
All right.
You and I do. You and I get to decide if we will make it to the master's table. We get to decide if he can use us to bless the people he's invited to his house.
All right.
We get to decide. We get to decide if we are going to be vessels of gold and silver, or if we are going to be vessels of wood and earth. We get to decide if we are going to be a massive golden serving platters, or if we are going to be spittoons and indoor plumbing. We get to decide. Here's what he says. Here's what he says. Look with me at verse number 21. He says, therefore, y'all still here? Yeah. All right. Therefore, if any man now cleanses himself from these, he will be a vessel of honor, sanctified, useful, and prepared for every good work. What's he saying? Okay, so if any man let go of the things that keep him from the table, he can get to the table. Yes. Are you with me? If any person let go, remove from his life, get rid of the things that block him and keep him from being used by God in the way that God intends to use him. If any man will get rid of the things that get in the way, he says he can get to the table.
Amen. Amen.
That's big. That's big because dishes and cups don't get to decide this. People do.
All right now.
What he says here is that you and I get to decide if we get used by God to bless the people he has invited.
Amen. Amen.
If anyone gets, are you still with me? If anyone gets rid of what gets in the way, he can be used. King James, I think, uses the word, rather than cleanses, he uses the word purge. Purge. It means to cleanse something or someone from something that is unwanted.
Yes.
It means to cleanse
That's good.
someone or something
That's good.
of an unwanted quality. But what if I really do want it?
Okay. All right.
What if in my effort of purging and my consideration of cleansing myself from unwanted qualities, I realize that I really do want it?
Mercy. Mercy.
What if I really do want the things that are getting in the way? What if I think some things.
Mm-hmm.
And that those things may really pull at you.
Yes.
And you may really want to go in another direction. You may want to be used by God, but the truth is, you want some things. You want some things, and those things that you want pull and tug at your heart. Paul says that when I want to do good, I want some things. When I don't want some things, I want some things. When I would do good, then evil is present with me. When I would do good, there's something that is pulling at my heart. He said, there's something else that I want. Believe me, I get it.
All right.
I wish I could stand here as your pastor and say, I ain't never wanted some things.
All right.
Come on now.
I wish I could tell you that I don't want some things now.
All right.
But the truth is, sometimes I want God and I want some other things. The text acknowledges that there is something in us, there is a part of us that wants some things. The question that I cannot get away from, that I cannot seem to separate even for a moment from, the question that this text raises for you and I is this. What if, are you with me?
Yes.
What if being used by God for our best possible good means letting go of something we really want? What if being used by God for our best possible good? What if the place on the table that is the best place prepared for you, what if getting there means letting go of something you really want? This acknowledges that there are times when we want two things that are mutually exclusive of one another. I know I'm talking to the wind now because it's real holy for me. And the ones who get it scared to say amen. That sometimes we want to do right and we want to do wrong. The text seems to acknowledge that sometimes we want two things that are mutually exclusive of each other. It means you can't have both. But the text acknowledges that you want both.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
What if being used by God for our best possible good means letting go of something we really want?
Jesus. Help us, Lord.
This is the core issue of the text and of our spiritual walk. Choices. That's all this is about. Choices. Choices that you and I have the power to make.
Yes.
We have the capacity a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We have the power of choice.
Yeah.
We can't always control the outcome, but we do have the power of choice.
Yes. Yes.
If you wait, listen good, because I'm almost done. I don't know. If you wait for competing wants to pass,
That's good.
you know what I mean by competing wants?
Mm-hmm.
If you wait for competing wants to pass, you will miss a whole lot of opportunities.
All right.
Because there is rarely a moment in our Christian walk when there are not competing wants.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
The reality is that we're going to always want some things, and sometimes those things are going to be diametrically opposed to one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to be married, but I want to be single. I want to be clean, but I want to be dirty. Y'all just look at me like I
All right.
Come on now, preach.
I just sit there and talk to me. Y'all just sit there and look at me like I ain't saying nothing.
Mercy. Ooh, Jesus.
The reality of the text, the reality of a Christian life, the reality of life itself is that there are times when we want two things that are not the same.
Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Jesus himself had to make choices about competing wants.
That's right.
The whole garden thing is his whole life in a nutshell. The whole garden thing is his whole life of competing wants.
Yes.
Father, I want your will, but I don't want to die. Father, let this cup pass from me, but I want your will. You can't have it both, Jesus. But the truth is that he is warring in prayer, not so that he can look spiritual for us. He is warring in prayer because he has two legitimate wants that are competing against one another.
Yes.
He wants something. He wants two things that are diametrically opposed to one another. He came here for this. He says, behold, I come. In the volume of the book, it is written of me to do your will, a body you have prepared for me. This is why I came, but in the moment, in the moment when it came time to pay the price to do what you really brought me here to do, I find that I want something else.
Right.
His struggle is real. It is so real that one of the writers described this moment of prayer and of warring and of struggle that he prayed, he fought, he struggled so against competing wants that sweat like drops of blood begin to fall. This is real, y'all. It is so real that it means that he understands when you have competing.
Yes. Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you, Lord. Yes. Thank you, Lord.
What do I do with this?
Jesus.
What we do with it? If I'm at least honest enough to say, I got competing wants.
Yes.
If you can't get there, then none of the rest of what I'm going to say.
Yes.
makes any difference. Verse 22 and 23. Let's try that. I'm close. He says now, verse, you there with 22? Amen. He says now, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do with it? How am I going to now navigate the fact that I have these competing wants, that I want to be used by God, but I want to be used by me?
All right now.
I want him to be in control. I want him to be Lord of my life. I just don't want him to be Lord of every part of my life.
All right now.
Go ahead.
I want to let him in. I just don't want him to roam around. You know how you invite people to your house and you say, make yourself at home, but you don't really mean that, because before they get there, you run through the house and close certain doors.
All right now.
Because there's some rooms you don't want them to go in. There's some stuff, no matter how much you love them, there's some stuff you don't want them to see. There's some stuff you don't want them to make comment on it. They ain't going to make no comment to you. They going to make comment to everybody else after they leave your house. So you run through, you close the doors.
All right. Tell the truth.
God, I want you in my life. I want you to be Lord of my life. I want your presence in my life. I want your presence in my life. I just don't want your presence in that room.
All right.
Because there's some stuff in that room I really want, and I want to hold.
All right.
All right. This ain't, let me just say this, I don't want to get you, I want you to have the impression that this is just talking about sin.
All right.
Because this ain't just about sin.
All right now.
This is about any want that competes with his want.
Yes. Say it. Say it. Yes. Mercy, Lord.
Look what he says. You still with me?
Yes.
Verse 22, he says, flee. I needed to say that because I'm getting ready to read this verse. Listen. Flee also youthful lust.
Yes.
But follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart.
Yes.
But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing they do gender strife. Now you're going to talk to us about what to do with these competing wants. What do I do? How do I manage it? How do I navigate it? It's unlikely that on this side of heaven they're going to all come to an end, but he gives us a way to navigate.
All right.
Come on.
First he says that this is about this is about taking a hard look at how you are doing life and making some hard choices about the stuff that helps and the stuff that don't. Amen.
Yes.
This ain't about a list.
All right now.
So you're not going to get a list of sins.
All right.
Because you know what those lists do? If they threw out the Bible, we see those lists of sin, and we go through and see if our stuff is there, and if our stuff ain't there, we feel pretty good and we move on. Or if we take a glance and we think our stuff is there, we don't read that part, we just move on anyway. This ain't about a list.
Yes. Thank you, Lord.
This is about you and I being willing to take a hard look at how we do life and the choices we make around our competing wants. First, he says, let's talk about what's hurting.
Okay.
Let's talk about what's hurting your capacity to be used by God.
Yes.
He calls it youthful lust.
Yes.
Why does he call it youthful lust? Because youth, sorry teenagers in the room, youth want stuff they ain't supposed to have.
All right.
Come on.
They want stuff they ain't supposed to have yet.
Okay.
Because they don't know they can't handle it yet. Because by the time they were 12, they knew everything. You want stuff they're not supposed to have. They pout and sulk when they don't get it, or they go after it anyway. Youth, they say that youth is wasted on the young. Because when I was young and had the energy to do some stuff, I didn't know what to do with the energy.
Right.
Now that I'm old enough to know what to do with the energy, I ain't got it.
That's right.
Youth is wasted on the young. Maybe we should start young and grow, start old and grow young. Youth make really stupid decisions rooted in their untamed emotions.
Oh, that's good.
Now, that is not a diss on youth. It's just the reality. Because they don't have the experience and the wisdom that they need to gain in life yet. And so when they're left to make their own decisions about real critical life issues, they inevitably make dumb decisions because they don't have the tools to make good ones.
Yeah.
That's why it's called parenting. They make stupid decisions rooted in their untamed emotions. They do stuff because everybody's doing it. They live in, and our youth live, let's stay with me, teenagers, don't check out on me. I'm just telling you the truth. When you get older, you'll say, yeah, he was right. Youth live like they will have forever to fix the dumb stuff they do. Those of us who have gotten older, we know that some of the stuff we broke when we were young ain't never gonna get fixed. That's just a sad reality, that some stuff that we break in our youth never really gets fixed. You know, it's bad enough when you're youth and you make dumb decisions out of untamed emotions. But when you've grown and you do it, please. The stakes are a whole lot higher. You see, the stakes are a whole lot higher. So he says, flee youthful lust. Lust is not just about sexual wants, but it is about sexual wants. Can we go there? Can we go there this morning? It is about sexual wants. It is about making decisions, whether sexual or not, in the temporary that have permanent consequences.
Yes.
She says, flee useful lust. Are there still things that you're hanging on to, behaviors and ways of thinking from your youth? There's still decision-making tools that you are using from when you were a teenager? Are you still making decisions out of untamed emotions?
Jesus.
He says this stuff is going to get in the way of you really being used by God. See, here's the y'all handle this morning. Here's the thing, is that it's hard to be spiritually mature when you're emotionally immature.
All right now.
Because everything we read for spiritual application has got to be filtered through our immature emotions. And so how I react to the word what it means here is move away as far as you can, as fast as you can.
Yes.
It's what it means. Move away as far as you can, as fast as you can. Flee, useful love. Can I remind you, y'all still listening to me? Can I remind you that Jesus was only 30. Is this like millennial? That Jesus was only 30 when he made some of the hardest choices of his life. He didn't wait until he no longer had competing wants. You know the hardest part about us being used by God, you and I being used by God, is that our unwillingness to make the hard choices. We want to keep putting them off.
Yes.
We want to keep putting them off. We want to keep not making the hard choices that force us to look at ourselves. And so what we do is that we keep running from stuff when it gets hard, only to find out that the problem ain't the situation or the circumstance or the geography, that the problem you took with you.
That's right.
The problem is you.
Yeah.
And the problem is me. So he says, flee youthful love. Jesus was 30 years old. Jesus was 30 years old. Listen, how many people are around 30 in your 30s? How many 30 in your 30s around? Look at that. Look at that. Somebody raise their hand. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. Say they were speaking by faith, but that ain't true. They don't even remember 30. Jesus was 30 years old, and he begins to make some of the hardest life choices that a person could ever make. Choices about career, and choices about family, choices about ministry, and doing God's will. These are some hard choices. Choices even about where he lived. Or where he didn't live. These are hard choices choices about relationships and friendships and who to keep close and who to keep at a distance and who to let in and who not to let in, who to have his ear and who couldn't have his ear, what to be against and what to be for. These are hard choices. And he says to us, flee youthful lust, because you don't want to make these kinds of decisions. He says, so run from it. You can't live like you're a kid.
All right now.
He said, you got to be willing to take a hard look. Are you sure? Can we keep going? You got to be willing to take a hard look at what's hurting your capacity to be used by God. Secondly, he says, you got to be willing to take a hard look at what might help your capacity. Look at what he said. He says, follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. And he says, run away from that childish stuff.
Yes.
Move as far away as fast as you can.
Yes.
And chase, pursue mature attitudes and behavior. That's what helps. Now, can we keep going? He says, pursue righteousness. I wish I had time to just stay with these along, but let me just list them out. He says, pursue righteousness. Righteousness, doing the right thing even when it's hard.
Yes.
Doing the right thing even when it's hard. Righteousness. He says, faith. Trusting God with stuff that you never trusted anybody with but you.
All right now.
Come on.
See, we want to have faith for stuff. God's not interested in us having faith for stuff. He's interested in us having faith for stuff. And faith for stuff. He's interested in dealing with us having faith to trust him with our competing wants. To have faith to trust him with all of the confusion and the dangling and the wrangling that goes on in our head, and to bring that to him. Yeah, faith. Love pursue peace, pursue reconciliation, shortening the distance between you and God and other people. Shorten that distance. Then he says, here's some other things that help. He says, get in community with spiritually mature people.
Yes.
See what he says? He says, follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call upon the name of the Lord out of a pure heart. He says, get in community with people who are spiritually mature, or at least pursuing maturity.
Yes.
Right.
Amen.
If you're the only measure of your growth,
All right now.
your measurements are going to always be off.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Lord.
You got to be measured against something. If all your friends are trapped in the same wants as you, they probably can't help you.
Yes, Lord. Thank you, God. Say again.
You got to get in community
Yes.
with people
Yes.
that are growing.
Amen.
You got to get around some grown-ups.
Amen.
Say, get around some grown-ups. You got to get around some grown-ups, and if you can't find no grown-up, at least find some folk that's trying to do some that's a new word I've been hearing, adulting. At least try to get around some folk that's trying to do some spiritual adulting. If all you hang around is people who are in the same wants as you and not getting any better, you never gonna get any
All
better.
right now. Tell the truth. Thank you, Lord.
If all the people you hang around, if all they do is play childish games,
All right.
you know what? You are never going to want to do anything but play childish games.
Mercy.
You got to get around people that want something more.
Yes.
I'm not talking about perfection. I'm not talking about identifying people that are perfect, because that's just Jesus.
All right now. Yes.
You got to get around some people who are pursuing something more, who are pursuing a want that is bigger than their want.
All right.
Okay.
The text says people who are seeking the Lord out of a pure heart. You got to get around people who are pursuing God out of a pure heart.
Yes. Hallelujah.
That means they want it with all their heart.
Yes.
They don't mean they're perfect, just mean they want it. Do I have time? Let me drop this in there. This ain't really a part of this, but let me just drop this in. There's a text that says, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. What does that mean in this context? It's not that if I'm not perfect, that he won't hear me. If that were the case, then he wouldn't have heard me cry out for salvation.
Yes. Yes.
That's not what it's about. What it means is that I can't have both things. I can't hold on or regard or cherish iniquity in my heart. I can't hold on to stuff in my heart that's getting away while I reach out to him at the same time.
Yes.
I can't have both. I got to be willing to make choices.
All right. The choices. Yes.
And you need to get around people who are trying to make choices. You don't need to be around people that are just telling you what you want to hear.
Right. Right.
Lord.
I want my doctor, whether I listen or not. I want my doctor to tell me what he tells me, or she tells me. Lawrence, get rid of that. I don't want them to hug me and say, oh, there. We all fat. There. Feel better about yourself. Don't let nobody body shame you. We all fat. I want to tell them, get rid of it. I want them to tell me, work on this, boy. It's working on you.
All
What's hurting, what's helping, what's hindering. He says, I'm almost done. He says, foolish and unlearned talk.
All right now.
Hinders. Foolish and unlearned conversation. Look at somebody and say stupid stuff. Say stupid stuff. How much conversation are you having around stupid stuff?
All right now.
Really? How much energy are you expending on stupid stuff?
Thank you, Lord. Wow.
If all your conversations are with people trapped in the same want as you,
Jesus.
you're never going to want more. You have to move beyond the fruitless talk about stopping stuff that we haven't really decided we want to stop. You can show me grace. You can hug on me, and you can tell me it's okay. God loves me, and it's okay. We all got competing wants, and I can confess that. But until I make some choices,
All right now. All right.
we're going to keep having the same confession every time we come together.
Jesus.
Because it ain't about confession, it's about choices. Let me finish. You need to engage in some real conversations
Yes.
about seeking and pursuing God beyond your competing wants. He's not asking you to not want it.
All right.
Right?
Thank you, Lord.
Can I tell you a secret? Don't tell nobody. There's some wants you're going to deal with till you get to heaven
All right now.
that he's never going to take away. That you just got to live with it. And fight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That probably wasn't good news for some of you. You need to engage in some real conversations around what it looks like to pursue God despite your competing wants.
Yes.
What it looks like to obey God despite your competing wants.
Yes.
What it looks like to run after God even though you want to run after something else. Because just because you want something don't mean you get to have it.
All right now.
Just because you want things to be a certain way doesn't mean you get to have them a certain way. That's a want. Yes, that's a want. I acknowledge it as a want, but I also acknowledge that I ain't going to get it.
All right now.
I acknowledge that I can't buy every car I look at.
Yes. Right.
I can't buy every clothes, every suit that I look at, every pair of shoes that I look at. That's why I don't window shop. Because I don't want to look at nothing I can't take home.
Right.
That went over your head just ask me after church. I don't need to be looking at nothing I can't take home. I don't need to look at nothing I can't afford to buy. And I ain't willing to pay the price for looking.
All right.
You need to get in some real conversations about what it really looks like to live with the conflict of competing wants and to make the choice to pursue God anyway. It's not enough to say I have the want. You have to make a choice. Listen, I don't have a list of sins to give you. Okay? I don't have no list of sins to give you. We all can make our own list.
Yes.
That's right.
And it's not about what pastor wants. It's not about that. There are no expectations of perfection. But I want to tell you that there are times, and this may be one of those moments, when the Spirit of God challenges us to let go of a want that might be getting in the way. who you really want to be for God.
Yes.
It is saying, Father, I got some wants that are not the same as yours.
Yes.
I have some wants that are hurting and hindering my capacity to be used. And yet I find myself wanting them anyway.
Yes. Yes. Help me, Lord.
But I choose you. I want some stuff. But I choose you. I choose you. I choose you over all the other ones. I choose you over all the other pools. I choose to get myself in a position. I make this choice.
Help me, Lord.
In this moment, I make the choice to follow you. If being used by God for our best good means letting go of something we really want. If being used by God for our best possible good means letting go of something you really want, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? In a moment, I'm going to give you a few minutes to grapple with it, make some choices.
Yes.
If you want to make some choices, the altar is open. There are pillows, I think, on some of these pews. If you want to do that, or you can stay where you